There's a part of rural Louisiana deep in the cypress swamps where the air hangs thick with humidity and the silence is broken only by the buzz of insects and the distant croak of frogs. Here the bayous twist like forgotten veins veiled by Spanish moss and choked with lily pads leading to places the mapmakers forgot. One such place is the site of Stillwater, a town that didn't just fade, it drowned. In the spring of 1968, a massive unseasonal storm front rolled in from the Gulf, bringing with it not just torrential rains, but an unprecedented persistent rise in the swamp waters. Stillwater, built on low-lying land, was slowly, inexorably subsumed. What began as a flood became a permanent subversion, the town swallowed by the ever-rising stagnant depths. The official report blamed a natural disaster, but the few terrified families who fled before the water claimed everything spoke of something else, not just water, but a deep resonant hum emanating from the swamp's heart, and a chillingly beautiful, sorrowful singing carried on the humid night air, luring the waters ever higher. Stillwater vanished, its demise a local legend, its exact location lost beneath a new vast expanse of unnaturally still water. This story begins with Dr. Genevieve Duba, a 32-year-old ethnomusicologist and folklorist from Tulane University, specializing in the vanishing oral traditions of the American South. Genevieve wasn't interested in ghost stories or monster hunts. She pursued the vanishing echoes of human culture, forgotten lullabies, lost work songs, the ancient spirituals sung on isolated plantations. Stillwater was a morbid fascination, a footnote in a forgotten blues musician's journal, which spoke of a lament so deep it calls the water. Her deep dive into regional archives unearthed fragmented, censored reports from the 1960s detailing unusual acoustic phenomena reported by residents, strange sonic signatures detected by early geological surveys, and chilling lyrical patterns encoded within the final panicked radio transmissions from Stillwater before it went silent. These weren't just storm sounds, they were structured, complex melodies, beautiful and utterly alien. She never intended for her research to become an expedition. She certainly never intended for the swamp itself to sing her name. But fragments of her journey, her descent into the drowned world, survived, captured on her hydrophone recordings, transcribed from her autonomous drone's audio logs, and ultimately retrieved from a waterlogged, encrypted external hard drive found weeks later, snagged in a cypress root far from her abandoned airboat. The first sign that something was profoundly wrong didn't come from a sudden chill in the humid air or a spectral figure emerging from the Spanish moss. It came from the water itself. Genevieve had deployed her state-of-the-art hydrophone array, a grid of sensitive underwater microphones, across a promising section of the submerged swamp, guided by old survey maps. The air hung thick, heavy, unbroken by anything but the distant droning of cicadas. Her equipment, designed to capture the subtle sounds of aquatic life or underwater currents, was instead picking up something else. A faint, low-frequency hum, deep and resonant, emanating from far below the surface. It wasn't the rumble of distant thunder, nor the vibration of submerged machinery. It was too regular, too pure, too deliberate. It felt like a vast, slow breath being drawn from the very heart of the swamp. She spoke into her recorder, her voice calm, academic. July 2nd, 1:18 p.m. Location: approximate site of Stillwater, Louisiana. Hydrophone array picking up anomalous low-frequency hum. Source is deep, rhythmic, unlike any known natural aquatic or geological activity. Resembles a resonant vocalization, though that is highly improbable. Atmospheric pressure, consistent, but a peculiar stillness permeates the air, almost an absence of natural swamp sounds beyond insects. She listened intently, a gnawing unease taking root. The rhythmic hum intensified, subtly vibrating through the hull of her small airboat, up through her very bones. It wasn't just a reading, it was a physical sensation, an undeniable feeling that the water itself was alive, and it was listening to her. Hours passed under the oppressive sunless sky. The hum grew stronger subtly, almost imperceptibly at first, then with increasing clarity, accompanied by faint, almost inaudible chimes carried on the humid, stagnant air. They weren't distinct notes, not yet just a delicate bell-like quality woven into the pervasive hum like distant music playing beneath the surface of the water. She tried to dismiss it as the movement of trapped air bubbles or the unique acoustic properties of the submerged cypress trees. But the sounds persisted, weaving in and out of the rhythmic thrumming, becoming more defined, more insistent. Her equipment registered erratic thermal spikes from the deep water, localized areas, where the temperature rose unnaturally, then quickly fell, as if something immense was moving, generating warmth, then cooling in the depths. Her advanced sonar array, after sweeping the vast murky expanse, finally locked onto a major undeniable anomaly, a colossal perfectly formed void, hundreds of meters below the surface, directly beneath where Stillwater should have been. It wasn't a natural sinkhole, nor a collapsed cavern. It was too perfectly circular, too impossibly deep, its edges too smooth and defined. And from its very center, the rhythmic hum intensified to a palpable throb, along with a faint luminous glow, captured by the sonar's thermal imaging. Not heat, but light. A deep, impossible violet like a bruise on the deep ocean, but somehow terrifyingly intrinsically organic. She whispered into her recorder, again her academic detachment shattered by awe and profound dread. The void, it's immense, shaped, and it's undeniably luminous. A deep pulsing violet. The hum is emanating directly from its core. The chimes, I hear them clearer now. It's like the water is calling. The old bluesman's journal mentioned this. Lament that calls the water. This is it. This is the source. This is what truly drowned Stillwater. A metallic taste filled her mouth, the taste of burgeoning terror. Driven by a dangerous, irresistible combination of scientific imperative and a burgeoning icy fear that chilled her. To the core, Genevieve located the precise epicenter of the pulsing violet anomaly. The water above it was subtly, unnervingly different. A vast circular patch, where the surface was unnaturally still, unmarred by the slow currents of the bayou, as if a colossal invisible disk lay just beneath. She deployed her specialized submersible drone, a compact silent device designed for deep water exploration. The drone hummed faintly as it slipped beneath the surface, its powerful lights cutting through the murky depths. As it descended the violet, light from below intensified, pulsing up through the water column, growing brighter, more insistent. The chimes became clearer, more distinct, weaving directly into the rhythmic hum of the water, an insistent melodic murmur that seemed to coil around her very thoughts. Suddenly, the drone's cameras, now hundreds of meters deep, transmitted a horrifying sight, a massive, perfectly formed aperture in the swamp floor. Not a natural fissure, but a colossal circular opening roughly 100 meters in diameter, descending into utter lightless depths beyond the drone's lights. It wasn't a ragged collapse. Instead, It was a perfectly circular maw, like a vast open throat. A profound earthy smell, unlike anything she'd ever known, wafted up from the depths through the water column like ozone wet soil and something unidentifiably disturbingly organic. The violet light pulsed from below a beacon in the black revealing walls that were not rough natural earth, but smooth, almost polished rock rippling with what looked disturbingly like ancient fossilized patterns, vast and intricate. She edged her airboat cautiously towards the anomaly on the surface, her console lights cutting a solitary glow through the oppressive gloom of the swamp. The rhythmic pulse from below was now a truly physical force, vibrating the airboat, making her teeth hum and her vision subtly blur. The chimes were louder, an incessant melodic murmur that seemed to emanate from all directions at once, from the very water itself, from the seemingly empty air. They weren't words in any human language, but a vast, terrifying chorus of ancient laments, a profound sorrow for something lost, or perhaps a chillingly patient invitation to something found. Genevieve instinctively activated her high-resolution sonar, sweeping the immense shaft. Its powerful pings streamed back immediate chilling images of the impossibly smooth shaft, plunging thousands of meters down into the Earth's belly. And then at a depth where no man-made structure should have existed, the sonar hit something. Not bedrock, not a natural geological formation, the very top of a structure. It was the steeple of a church, impossibly preserved, its delicate architectural details still visible, despite being completely encrusted with a strange, bioluminescent blue-green algae that shimmered faintly in the sonar's light. It was unmistakable. It was the remains of Stillwater, but not collapsed, not shattered. Instead, it was remarkably intact, as if the entire town had been carefully, deliberately lowered into this colossal subterranean chamber. As the sonar descended, further entire rooftops, then upper stories, then street-level storefronts, meticulously emerged from the gloom, all uniformly covered in the same strange glistening algae. The pervasive violet glow from deeper below illuminated the scene, making the drowned town appear as if it floated in a vast, dark subterranean ocean waiting. "My God," Genevieve whispered into her recorder, her voice strained raw with a mix of pure, unadulterated awe and bone-deep dread. "Stillwater, it's down here, perfectly intact, encased in something, and it's glowing. The whole town pulsating with that violet light. It didn't just drown, it was taken by something." The chimes grew urgent, insistent, now twisting and coiling. In her mind, drawing her closer to the edge of the airboat, the very water beneath her began to thrum with a subtle, unnerving pull, a magnetic gravitational force emanating directly from the maw, from the perfectly preserved, drowned town below. It was a beckoning and irresistible invitation into the unknown. Against all sane judgment, against every fiber of her being that screamed at her to flee, Genevieve found herself compelled. The irresistible pull from below, combined with the insidious, pervasive chimes, overrode her instincts. She began to prepare for descent. She meticulously anchored her airboat to the sturdiest cypress trees, triple-checking every line, every knot, every inch of the reinforced diving cable. The air at the maw's edge was thick, heavy, with a profound earthy scent now tinged with a faint, sweet, cloying odor. The violet light pulsed from below, a vast subterranean sun, its rhythm a slow, deliberate heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with her own. As she carefully lowered herself into the yawning maw, the rhythmic thrum grew deafening, vibrating not only through her suit, but through her entire skeletal structure, resonating deep within her bones. The chimes, no longer merely background noise, coalesced not into coherent language, but into direct, terrifying transfers of raw sensation into her mind, profound sorrow, unimaginable ancient loneliness, and endless patient wait that had spanned millennia. Her specially weighted boots touched down on the sloped, algae-encrusted roof of a two-story building, its original shingles, remarkably intact, but now completely covered in the same strange bioluminescent blue-green algae that seemed to permeate everything in this abyssal space. The violet glow permeated the entire subterranean chamber, a vast, unimaginable cavern stretching into unseen distances, illuminated solely by the city itself, a self-luminous buried monument. Stillwater was a ghost city perfectly preserved beneath the water, its structures eerily still undisturbed by time. But it wasn't dead. No, the rhythmic pulse originated from everywhere, from the very walls of the cavern, from the buildings, from the very water, from the ground beneath her feet. It was alive. She moved cautiously across the algae-coated rooftop, her suit lights cutting a solitary beam through the oppressive gloom. Windows were intact, but opaque, completely covered with the thick, shimmering algae, reflecting the eerie violet glow like countless unblinking eyes. She found an open doorway, likely a consequence of the rapid submersion, rather than the collapse, and carefully made her way inside. The interior was a frozen tableau of 1960s life, perfectly preserved furniture, covered in a thick layer of silty sediment, and the pervasive algae framed photographs on walls, untouched belongings on tables. But the silence inside was chilling. No current stirred the dust. No echoes returned her cautious fin strokes. Just the rhythmic pulse and the omnipresent sibilant chimes, now intensely focused, direct, a constant pressure against her consciousness. She continued deeper into the drowned city, drawn by the intensifying violet light, until she reached what must have been the town's central square. The violet light was brightest here, a pulsating heart emanating from a cluster of several perfectly circular and possibly deep aquifers. These weren't traditional narrow wells dug by human hands. They were far too wide, too smoothly formed, their vast dark interiors glowing with that same organic violet luminescence. They hummed with a low resonant frequency, a deeper, more profound note within the rhythmic pulse of the entire city. Genevieve realized with a cold, sickening dread that solidified in her gut that these were the source of the persistent water rise the wells of the storm. But they hadn't found water. They had tapped into this, into something vast, alive, and utterly alien. As she approached one of the largest, most intensely glowing aquifers, the chimes intensified, dramatically focusing directly into her mind, bypassing her auditory senses entirely. They were not malicious, not aggressive, but possessive, ancient, a vast, patient consciousness communicating its intent. You are drowning. We have breath. Join us. The words were not spoken aloud, but imprinted directly onto her consciousness, terrifyingly clear, undeniable. She felt a profound, aching sense of emptiness within herself, a deep, pervasive void that the entity seemed to be calling to, promising to fill with its light, its resonance, its terrifying unity. Genevieve recoiled from the glowing aquifer, the mental invasion overwhelming, an insidious violation of her very being. The entity's chimes, now a relentless internal monologue, promised solace, profound understanding, unity with something vast and ancient, an end to her individual struggles, replacing them with a terrifying, seductive sense of belonging. Her suit's sophisticated biomonitors flashed frantic, alarming warnings: heart rate, dangerously elevated neurological patterns, wildly erratic brainwave activity showing a disturbing predominance of delta waves, a state typically associated with deep sleep or complete unconsciousness, even though she was wide awake, lucid, and utterly terrified. The entity was actively manipulating her physiology, not with brute force, but with a subtle, terrifying precision, attempting to dismantle her resistance to prepare her for assimilation. She forced herself to regain composure, activating her portable sonar again, pointing its emitter directly into the glowing aquifer. The screen flared with impossible off-the-charts readings. The aquifer wasn't just deep, it extended for miles, perhaps hundreds of miles beneath the earth, a direct pulsing conduit to an unimaginably vast living organism. The violet light, she now understood, was its very essence, its conscious awareness, permeating the entire subterranean void, a visible manifestation of its thought. And then the sonar picked up something else, something that made her blood run cold. Within the glowing depths of the aquifer, thousands of anomalous signatures, irregular, yet distinctly patterned, pulsed with the same organic violet light, were undeniably biological, and they were undeniably human. The townsfolk, she gasped into her recorder, a horrified realization dawning with sickening clarity. Her voice was a strained whisper, barely audible over the thrumming. They didn't just die in the flood, they were absorbed. Their consciousness, their very bodies integrated into this thing. The missing people of Stillwater, they're here. The chimes. In her mind intensified further, no longer just sibilant murmurs, but now taking on fragmented, echoing forms of human voices. Not distinct words, but chilling inflections, raw emotions. Terrified pleas for help. A child's desperate, forlorn cry. A mother's lament, infinitely prolonged. They were the trapped echoes of Stillwater, thousands of individual souls, forced into eternal, unwilling chorus with the vast, consuming entity below. As she stared, paralyzed by horror, into the glowing depths of the aquifer, a single hand slowly, deliberately rose from the depths, perfectly preserved, utterly intact, coated in the shimmering blue-green algae that consumed the city. It pulsed with the entity's internal violet light, a beacon of unspeakable horror. It was a woman's hand, delicate yet strong, her wedding ring still glinting faintly on her finger. It reached out, not threateningly, not with aggression, but with a horrifying, desperate invitation, echoing the insidious chimes in her mind. Come, be breath, be whole, become part of us. The fingers twitched, beckoning her closer, a silent, terrifying command. Genevieve stumbled back, repulsed, a guttural cry caught in her throat. She bumped hard against a large, familiar-looking object, half submerged in the algal coating the square. It was a heavy, industrial-grade, sonic mapping buoy, part of the early geological survey equipment, abandoned and now half swallowed by the encroaching algae. It was massive, its advanced sonic emitters now dull and corroded by time, and something else, something alien. This was the very buoy that had first detected the unusual acoustic phenomena that had perhaps even amplified or drawn the entity to the surface. A desperate, illogical, yet strangely compelling thought formed in her mind. If this buoy had opened the path, could it somehow be used to seal it? Or perhaps more violently, to wound the entity, to disrupt its terrifying vast harmony? It was a glimmer of defiance against overwhelming odds. The beckoning hand from the aquifer solidified, further stretching out its glowing fingers, almost touching the very edge of the square. Its palm, as it reached, revealed a faint, intricate, almost pulsing glyph carved into its surface. It wasn't human. It was unmistakably alien, ancient, resonating with a terrifying unknown power, a symbol of the entity's true cosmic nature. The entire central square around her began to pulse with a new, stronger energy, a powerful tremor originating from the aquifer itself. The violet light intensified momentarily, blinding her, saturating her vision with its unholy glow. The chimes in her mind shifted, no longer a seductive invitation, but a forceful, undeniable command. You will join. You will provide the missing frequency. Your harmony will complete ours. She felt the water beneath her begin to tremble with a deep, resonant undulation, not violently, but slowly, inexorably. The entire city, the entire basin seemed to be vibrating, sinking, being drawn deeper into the water. The entity was not just consuming passively. It was moving its colossal form, shifting, perhaps attempting to pull her into its very core, into the blinding source of that violet light, where the assimilation would be absolute, irreversible. The water grew impossibly heavy, like swimming through thick, viscous liquid pressing in on her suit. Her eyes darted frantically, desperately searching between the beckoning, horrifying hand in the aquifer and the immense, silent sonic mapping buoy. She spotted a single narrow fissure in the cavern wall, a geological weakness almost imperceptible, a path she hadn't noticed until this desperate moment. It was far too small for her to enter easily, but her compact, autonomous drone still attached to her utility belt was slender enough. If she could send it, if it could navigate the fissure and carry a message, a final coherent warning about what truly lay beneath Stillwater before she was inevitably consumed. She lunged for the heavy industrial-grade sonic mapping buoy, her mind a maelstrom of racing thoughts. It was too massive to move, but perhaps she could trigger something within its complex machinery. Its core power unit, designed for incredible energy output for subterranean mapping, was still faintly humming, powered by an internal experimental battery cell, miraculously still holding a charge after decades underwater. If she could overload, it'd create a catastrophic feedback loop, a chaotic burst of energy. It might be enough to disrupt the entity's resonance, to create the cacophony of disharmony that the old blues musician's journal had hinted, and is Stillwater's final cryptic records. It was a long shot, a desperate, impossible gamble against an ancient, hungry force that dwarfed all human comprehension. The hand from the aquifer stretched further, its glowing fingers almost touching the very edge of the square, beckoning her into the violet light. The chimes became a deafening chorus of fragmented human screams, the desperate, dying echoes of Stillwater's citizens, now part of the entity's horrifying, unending song. She could feel her own consciousness beginning to fray at the edges, the delicate boundaries of her mind blurring, her individual thoughts merging with the vast collective agony and the alien intelligence that permeated everything. The ancient entity was not just consuming her, it was tasting her, preparing her, savoring her for the final, ultimate assimilation. Her fear was being replaced by a chilling, seductive resignation. She had to choose: fight and risk being consumed with utter, agonizing clarity, or run and perhaps leave a final, desperate warning for a world that would never believe her. What will Genevieve Duba choose as the ancient entity of Stillwater prepares to claim her, its siren song promising an eternal, drowning unity? Will the massive sonic mapping buoy be her weapon, her salvation, or simply another monument to the swamp's insatiable hunger? And what dark cosmic purpose does this vast conscious entity serve, hidden for eons beneath the drowned town, waiting for the unwary to succumb to its call?